This meeting, I think, is kind of a supplemental meeting to the one that we held on March 3rd, possibly to correct some procedural errors that were made during the March 3rd meeting. I think this is, we have an agenda which is going to address, I think, the masking, testing, and possibly vaccination for employees of Fitchburg Public Schools and also for students. So I think that we'll start this time with a public forum. I think at the last meeting, we had Mr. Jokela speak because he had an engagement that he had to be at very shortly after we started the meeting. And I will say that partly because of my understanding of the meeting, I didn't recognize that the public forum was going to be related to that subject. So we're here to correct that today, to allow individuals who want to speak to the subjects that we've mentioned. So number one on our agenda is going to be the public forum. Shall we do that first then, Steve? And
yeah, you did address the open meeting law complaint, so we can discuss it more, but I think that's a good idea, yes, public forum.
Just to go ahead and let the public speak. I know that we had petitions, and so that might, they may overlap, but if there is anyone who would like to speak, I think either in person or virtually about the subjects that were discussed at the March 3rd meeting, we can go ahead. As we've said on each occasion, if you are going to speak, we'd ask you to stand or sit in front of a microphone so that everyone can hear you, that you state your name and address, and that you speak on the items that appear on the agenda for no more than 2 minutes so that we can kind of limit the length of the meeting to some extent. And if you would state the petition or the order or the resolution to which you refer, we would appreciate that. So I think we have Mrs. Wetchey at the, or Ms. Wetchey at the stand. I'm assuming you want to address us.
Yes, Jacqueline Wetchey, Fitchburg resident, and I'm speaking on agenda item number 4. No one should be forced to undergo mandatory vaccination or testing. Great figures in American history, from Emma Lazarus to Martin Luther King to Fannie Lou Hamer, speak to the fact that nobody's free until everybody's free. You have said that we need these mandates or the schools will be short-staffed, but this is the opposite of the truth. If someone gets sick with COVID, they are out from 5 to 10 days. If they don't come to work in this district because of its restrictions, they are out the entire year. These tests are not even that accurate. A family member of mine isolated for 5 days before a surgery, tested negative, then less than an hour after being discharged, felt poorly and went back to the hospital and tested positive. The hospital refused to retest him, although he had no COVID symptoms, just dizziness from the anesthesia. But when he got home again, he tested himself and was negative. Yet people are forced to miss work, isolate, and quarantine based on unreliable tests. Although you lifted the municipal mask mandate on February 17th, students at Fitchburg State are still required to wear masks by the university. Similarly, if you lift the school employee mandates, it will not invalidate collective bargaining agreements, but it will put you on the right side of history. Reports are regularly coming out now, including last week in the New York Times, showing that COVID restrictions imposed a significant burden on people with little to no public health benefit. You should be an independent, deliberative body, not a rubber stamp for the superintendent. At the last meeting, Mr. Murray was rude to me. He said that the board has heard enough from me and I have spoken at every meeting. I checked with the Fitchburg Historical Society, and the Board of Health was established between 1885 and 1888. If I really had spoken at every meeting, I would be at least 135 years old. So I haven't. but I will continue to speak at every meeting that has a petition such as the one presented today until everybody's free. It's my right to speak, and it's your duty to listen.
Thank
For
you.
the record, I never asked Ms. Wetchy to stop speaking. I only indicated that she had spoken at every meeting, which is totally fine. It's her right. I don't want her to stop speaking.
And I don't think there was any
Never asked her
implication that you were here in 1885.
You can watch
or
it
whatever
again.
was. All right, thank you very much for your comments. Is there another person? Just before we do that, are there going to be some people speaking virtually as well? Anyone
We have no participants virtually as of this moment.
Okay,
I will continue to keep an eye on it, however.
all right, thank you.
My name is Stephanie Michaud. I am requesting that the test or vaccinate mandate be lifted and made optional for our teachers or any other employee of the city. All the vaccines currently in circulation are emergency use authorization. The only approved vaccination is Comirnaty, and it is currently not in circulation. I've called all of the pharmacies around. They do not have Comirnaty. A U.S. federal district judge, Alan Windsor, declared Pfizer Biotech and Comirnaty are not interchangeable. There's a difference in legalities and manufacturing process. There of fully licensed vaccines and EUA vaccines. The Nuremberg Code provides that no human being can be forced to participate in a medical experiment or be forced to use EUA products. COVID tests also fall in the category of EUA products. Mandating teachers to test or vaccinate with EUA products violates the Nuremberg Code and constitutional rights to bodily autonomy and medical decisions. To repeatedly test a healthy individual for an illness they do not have is abuse. COVID testing on unvaccinated individuals but not on vaccinated individuals is discrimination. Both vaccinated and unvaccinated carry this illness, and these mandates are abusive, discrimination, and violate the constitutional rights and federal law. Teachers in our city are intelligent enough to do the research that they need to do to educate themselves to make their own medical decisions. I am requesting that these test or vaccinate mandates be moved to optional.
Thank you for your comments, and we appreciate your research. I think everyone certainly is entitled to his or her opinion in these matters, and there's always going to be differences of opinion. Some folks rely on certain sources, others on other sources. I don't know as if we have a way really to merge those sources. It seems that many sources in this country are different. I will say with respect to the EUA, you're quite correct that it was an emergency use authorization for the vaccines, but I think that prior to administering those vaccines, they were tested on millions of people. Yes. And I think they were found to be safe. Otherwise, I don't think that they would have been allowed. But anyway, as I say, we have differences of opinion. We certainly respect yours, and we're going to consider all these things when it comes time to voting. Actually, we voted last time, but we'll vote again, I think, just to stay in compliance with the with the way that this meeting should be conducted. All right, next.
Gina Giacosa, 9 Phillips Passway, Fitchburg, Mass. Again, I'm with them on the vaccine. Brought you some pictures of the lovely side effects that have been happening to people that you don't see on the news, nobody looks for. These are in children, these are in adults. Can be found anywhere. Take a look at those. That's what people have to choose from. They got to choose their jobs over their lives. And now, I work at CVS. I was there today. They're starting to vaccinate kids left and right. Kids screaming, doesn't want it. Now, my pharmacist should have said, we shouldn't be doing this because they take an oath that's supposed to be for the patients. Kept on doing it. 45 minutes, kids screaming. I finally lost it and I went over there. This kid can't speak for himself. None of these kids can speak for themselves. You see those pictures? That's what happens to people. That is for people who are still alive, mind you. The rest are already dead, so they can't speak. And you know what? Their families can't sue anybody either because it's under EAU and nobody's held responsible. Now, as for the testing in the school, you told me they weren't doing it in the classroom. This is as of Tuesday, this week, at Memorial Middle School, 6th grade, green team, testing in the classroom. Illegal. It's a medical procedure that's supposed to be done in somewhere private, okay? It was supposed to be removed. It's still there. That makes my daughter uncomfortable. There's no need for that. That's private. Private. Not to mention we went
I'll
over the
just
test.
interrupt you for a moment. Could you describe what we're looking at in this picture?
You're looking at a desk at the front of the classroom where they're doing COVID tests in the classroom.
Okay, I don't really see anyone doing a COVID test. I mean, I'll take your word for it, but I just see
You
a
can't
person
see the little,
standing
well, I
by.
had to cut out people, for privacy, but,
Was there a class going on at the time?
I'm sorry?
Was there a class going on at the time
Yes.
in the classroom?
Yes.
Was
Yep.
this for symptomatic kids?
It doesn't matter who it's for. It does
Well,
not
they're not
matter.
doing test and stay
Even
anymore.
if they agree to it, it is not to be done in a classroom.
What's your point?
I feel bad for the kids that, who have parents like me that are totally against it. They shouldn't be doing that in the classroom, regardless. You said they weren't doing it, they're still doing it. And just so you know when it is, it's every Tuesday morning at the schools, in the classrooms, at every school. And besides that, there's still all these mask requirements at the schools. Now, this is Monty Tech, which I know they're not really for public schools. There's vaccination signs, there's face signs, requirements. Why are we still up? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. If I have to go around to every school and take pictures so that everybody can see what's going on, I'll do that. And we will be here. And safety first, please wear a mask, which we know they're not safe, but that's besides the point. Oh, wait, this is on the outside door. Memorial. Face mask required. Need
They're
to.
not actually wearing them, are they?
Yeah. Oh, you can't even get in. Can't get past
Kidding
the
me.
front
I
door.
thought that was,
Okay. My next issue is, this is now at the pediatrics office. Student athletes. Sports physicals are done primarily to make sure you are not at high risk for sudden cardiac death on the playing field. COVID vaccination affects your risk. In response to this worldwide experience in vaccine adverse reactions and monitoring, we are adopting a new precautionary sports physical sign-off policy. If you've received a dose of COVID vaccine, they're requiring you to get an echocardiogram for your child to play sports.
is this in Fitchburg Public Schools?
No, this is for sports regardless. Because you guys seem to follow everybody around the country, every city, everywhere.
I'm sorry, could you,
It's Allegheny
where
County,
is this
Virginia.
from?
That's from the pediatrician's office.
Oh, it looks like Covington, Virginia.
We work with every state in every country.
Well,
It
this,
doesn't
I mean, this picture,
It's the same at my doctor's office. We
I'm just
discussed it last
asking where
week.
this picture is from. It's from Covington, Virginia, the picture
It's
you've
one of the
given me?
parents that's in our lawsuit group. So it was supposed to be done February 28th. It's not. Statement from Jokela right here. February 28th, face mask will no longer be required by staffs and students in school. And where is today? March 17th. March 17th. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Well, again, thank you. Some of these photographs are undated and they're not, doesn't really tell us where they're from. I do agree that there is a statement here from Superintendent Jokola. If I could just finish, you know, I didn't interrupt you, and I appreciate you don't interrupt me, so we can just speak cordially, all right? I'm just saying that I do agree that Superintendent Jokola did say that masks would be optional or voluntary after February 28th. I think if in fact some of these pictures do show that there are signs advising something contrary to that, or if individuals are saying something contrary to that, you're talking about enforcement of the recommendations. I don't think that's really our job. We make recommendations, we make mandates on occasion, but I don't think we're responsible for standing at the school or standing in a doctor's office or let me finish, please. Standing in a public place to enforce these things.
It is your responsibility, because if you're the ones mandating and putting these rules on, then you should be the one that's going around to the schools making sure they're followed, or have somebody in charge for that.
We made no mandate. We actually lifted a mandate.
Was it the last 3 meetings that said the Board of Health is the one that makes all the decisions?
I don't know what you're talking about. And so I think I've given you what my opinion is. So again, I think your 2 minutes are up, by the way.
I'm a taxpayer. I'll take as long as I want here. Period.
We can ask you
Guys
to
work for
leave
us.
if you don't.
You'll be
If
asked
you're
to
not
leave.
cooperative, we'll ask
Ask
you
me
to
to leave
leave.
and I'll come back again. And then I'll call Mr. Di Natale
If we have to follow the open meeting law, so doesn't everybody else. And the open meeting
Yeah.
law says that the public can speak at the pleasure of the chair.
I don't
If the
care
chair
what-
asks you to be quiet or stop disrupting.
My United States right as a citizen is to have a voice and have it heard wherever and whenever I
Let's
would
get on
like.
with the meeting and, okay,
Yeah.
I'll be civil, please. Let's just all be civil.
Yeah.
We can do it.
We've listened to you. We try to be cordial. We ask you just to be the same with us. We don't interrupt you when you're speaking, and we would appreciate it if you don't interrupt us. It's just civil behavior, that's all. So, again, we appreciate your opinions. Everyone certainly is entitled to it. You've made that perfectly clear. And I don't think that always we're going to come to agreement on opinions, and we're all entitled, just as you're entitled to have opinions, we're entitled to have them too. I think that certainly it appears that, at least currently, the Omicron and other COVID variants are decreasing in their frequency. There's some indication that there's a new variant of BA2, so-called, that is beginning to come up in Europe and China and even in this country to some extent, but we'll have just to wait and see what happens with that. We've always made, and I think I've said this ad nauseum, we've always made our decisions with the best interests of the public of Fitchburg at heart. There will always be anecdotes that show that our decisions weren't perhaps 100% correct all across the board. Anytime a physician gives medicine, there's always a risk of side effects, no matter how long the medicine's been around, because everyone's different and people do react to them differently. So I think if you look hard enough, even with aspirin or Tylenol, you'll find side effects that are undesirable. And the same with any vaccine, not just COVID, but any vaccine that's given, there are going to be reactions. I think we've always tried to balance. I think we could show you many pictures of people ill with COVID on ventilators, ICUs, and in graves. Many pictures of those in response to the pictures you've shown us. We try to balance off the severity of those illnesses against the risk of any medication or vaccine that we give. That's always what physicians and people in healthcare do. There's always a balance. And we're certainly not trying to take away anyone's rights. We're trying to protect the most people we can. Individually, some people will feel that it's an infraction on their rights, but for the greater good, unfortunately, we all have to step back a little bit and wear a mask when it's appropriate, get vaccinated when it's appropriate. But again, I think the Omicron and the COVID diseases seem to be decreasing in frequency. And so last time we did vote, perhaps a little out of turn, but we did vote to lift the mask mandate and to lift the testing mandate, which I guess is the order number 3. As far as order number 4 goes, the vaccination, I think that also that had been lifted, so we don't really have mandates, I think, with respect to those, at least as far as I understand it. If the vaccination is, if it's still required at the school, it's my understanding that employers across this state and actually across the country are entitled to make certain requirements with respect to vaccination. That's their prerogative to do. I do think that at this point, certainly with regard to mask wearing and to testing in Fitchburg public buildings and in respect to the school, that we can lift these mandates. And I would make a motion that we lift the mandates and make mask wearing and testing voluntary or optional for those who want to do it. So there's a motion on the floor. Well, you can go ahead and speak to it now then.
Excuse me, when was the vaccine mandate lifted?
I don't
My understanding, I
think
think,
it was.
That's what he said. He just said that.
I know what he said. We're going to clarify it. Okay, we're going to clarify it.
We're trying to be
I don't
clear.
think we did. I don't think we did lift number 4,
That is correct.
because
Number
that
4
was
still
between
exists.
the teachers' union and the school. However, I'm wondering if the board could make a recommendation that we support that it be lifted and hand it over to the schools, because it's really out of our hands.
Excuse me. I got an email.
Wait a minute.
I got an email from Mr. Di Natale with all of the
Who, the
minutes.
mayor?
The mayor, with all of the minutes, and it comes back to the Board of Health. No, yes, because you put the vaccine or test mandate, so the school committee and the union followed and had to make an agreement.
Well,
So it falls on you to lift it. It doesn't matter, it comes right back
It
here.
does matter, because Superintendent Jokelis said that it was up to the
Well, I know what he said, and then you guys said that you didn't do it, and the school committee said that they didn't do it, so I contacted the mayor and I talked to him.
well,
And it comes back to what the mayor sent to me was to petition the Board of Health, Steve, and that it comes back to the Board of Health because you guys need to lift the vaccine or test mandate for the staff at the schools.
no,
And then they can
Okay.
follow with their contract.
Okay.
Right, Steve? This is how it went?
That's correct. So order number 4 still exists, which either mandates or a vaccination or a weekly test to employees of the Fitchburg Public Schools. Order number 3, which required which required testing for extracurricular activity, was rescinded at the last meeting.
And we have to either vote or not vote for it at this meeting to correct it, correct?
Well, since there was a communication breakdown in the last meeting, and folks didn't understand what happened on the vote, I think it would make a clearer picture of communication, as well as address the open meeting law complaint that was filed.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, John? Is that right?
yes. My motion is to lift the mask mandate and the testing mandate for Fitchburg Public Schools and for public buildings.
Okay.
And to leave in place the optional, the option for voluntary testing and for voluntary mask wearing in those facilities.
So you're amending order number 4,
Yes.
for clarity.
No, we're talking, this motion has to do with masking and with testing.
So,
Point of order, the petition has nothing to do with masks. At the March 3rd meeting, Dr. Bogdasarian, you kept talking about the masks, and the masks were already rescinded on February 17th. Now you're talking about masks again. The motion, or rather the petition, is to rescind the mandatory testing and vaccination for employees of public schools that has nothing to do with masking.
she is correct.
We'll get to that. But we're just going to affirm the motion that was made with regard to masking and to testing. That's the first motion. So,
Can I ask a question? Is that you talking about extracurricular activities, after-school activities? I'm
I think-
getting confused here.
yes, I think as far as the extracurricular activities went, the masking and testing, I think, remained in place just for the playoff teams.
Right,
the
and is
mask-
that
the-
done, sorry,
We did the masking at the joint meeting with the school committee, is when we lifted the mask mandates for the school.
So the March 3rd meeting, you folks voted to remove or rescind order number 3.
Right.
Which required testing to folks, anybody involved with extracurricular activity. Nothing to do with masking.
Right.
so is that the motion that's on the table now?
So I'll clarify the motion. So the motion is, this is number 3,
Yes.
to remove testing for extracurricular, to remove mandated testing for extracurricular activities. Which will make it
I'll second that
voluntary.
Which essentially is order number 3.
Or number 3.
Yes, yes, now I'm okay. I second that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're back to,
You already voted on that at the last meeting to
That is
rescind order
correct.
number
that's why we
3.
had to do it
We're
again.
trying to be clear and open. Please be patient.
We understand that.
Putting pressure and yelling doesn't make it communication any clearer.
And the public comment period's over.
What's that?
I believe the public comment period is over.
It is, but I'll allow this woman to speak. I think you're a bit late to the public comment.
I had to bring them
public
with me
forum.
because I have someplace else I have to be real quick, and then I'll be right back. But this is my autistic grandson that you guys thought you needed to stick something up his nose, almost into his brain. He isn't going to have that. He's not going to let you touch him. And then you put a mask on his face that felt like 1,000 needles. Would you like to hear him tell you what it felt like?
Well, we appreciate that, and I think there certainly are medical exemptions for all these things.
They don't care about the medical exemptions. They don't. I lost a lung from cancer. I can't wear this. Tell me one person out there that cared. Nobody. Nobody cares about your exemptions. The exemptions should be permanent. Nobody should have to wear them. They're trying to muzzle us so we don't talk to each other and tell the truth about what's really going on out here. You guys need to wake up. There's an ugly truth that you're missing completely. I'm telling you.
Well, again, I appreciate
Media
your
is lying to you. Stop watching the media.
thank you for the advice. I very much appreciate it, and we appreciate your comments and your research. And we're certainly considering all of your opinions. As I say, I think that we're all entitled to different opinions, and again, we appreciate your coming and expressing yours. So I think perhaps I misread something about order number 4, and that was that as far as vaccination goes, it was my impression that mandate had also been lifted. It's my understanding that employees in Massachusetts and across the country actually are allowed to make their own rules with respect to vaccination and to make people adhere to that. I think we can give our opinion and give advice, but I think I'm going to say that I think it does finally come down to the school department to make their own decisions about that. We can make some recommendations, but what they do is really finally up to them. They're the employers, not us. So it appears that the vaccination has been mandated to be done.
So order number 4 is a mandate for school employees to be tested or vaccinated, vaccinated and/or tested weekly. School employees. Nothing to do with the students. Nothing to do with the students, just school employees.
I don't know if we could put it this way, but for us to say, as the Board of Health, we are not going to, and I'm thinking out loud here, we are not going to mandate that staff at schools be vaccinated or tested, or that students be vaccinated or tested. But the final decision with regard to that, again, it's my understanding, the final decision with regard to that is made by employers. I would highly recommend to individuals that they get vaccinated, but I do understand that there are those who don't want to do it, and I think that should be your free choice. If you don't want to get vaccinated, then you should be allowed not to get vaccinated. If you don't want to wear a mask, then you should be allowed not to wear a mask. So I think that,
Can I say something,
would you sit till I'm finished,
please?
please?
Yes, please. Right, and I ask nicely, so I would like to say something, please.
I'm asking you to sit until I'm finished,
But
and
I'm
then,
asking you if I can say something.
I think that I would make a motion for the Board of Health to change Order 4, not to mandate, as far as we're concerned, to mandate vaccination or testing, but that, again, I think the final decision would rest with the school committee to make their own decision as the employer of these individuals as to what they want to do. Again, so I would make a motion that we lift that mandate, again, with the recommendation that people get it, but I will state that I think that if we can make it an optional and individual decision for each member of staff to get it or not, based on what the Board of Health is saying. What the school department may say may be something different, and as far as I'm concerned, that's up to them. So I don't know if that's a clear motion, but I make it.
So basically, the Board of Health has a motion on the table to rescind order number 4 with regards to number 4. But with the school committee and is it the teachers' union? Is the issue with the teachers' union and the school committee? Is that what it is? I want to be clear on that because I don't think we are.
I believe the administration has presented it to the school committee. I mean, I'm
Okay.
sorry, the teachers or the unions, correct.
Okay. So I'm in favor of that motion with having the Board of Health rescind that order.
Yes.
And then to toss it over to the schools can finalize what they want to do with it. I think that's all we can do.
So that's a second.
Okay, so I think we're all in favor of
I'm in
that.
favor.
So that passes. Again, with a strong recommendation, and again, we have different opinions, I know, but it would be my personal, I'll say it personally, it would be my strong personal recommendation that individuals who are eligible to receive vaccination and boosters, that they get them. But I think it'll become voluntary, and if individuals don't want to get it, then don't get it. It's up to you. So I think that takes care of the petitions, if I'm understanding correctly. There was a young woman who had something to say. Is it? We'll listen to her.
He's a boy.
Oh, young boy, I'm sorry. I should get new glasses.
Thought mandates were only for state officials.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I thought mandates were only for state officials. Aren't you guys state officials? Where's your masks?
Okay.
They're all done, hon. They're all done.
You've confused me a little bit, but I think we'll leave it at that. And I think that pretty much takes care of the public forum and the petitions. As far as the open meeting law complaint goes, I think we've addressed that. Again, I'll just say one other thing about that. I think Ms. Wenchie has suggested that I be replaced as chairman or that I be removed from the Board of Health altogether. I will just say again in my own defense, I'm not an attorney, I'm a physician. I make my decisions, I think, based on my medical experience and medical training and the time I've spent in practice. I probably make some mistakes when it comes to the legal transactions that go on here, and for those I apologize. I will say that certainly if the Attorney General to whom you've written, or the Board of Registration in Medicine and Nursing to whom you've written, or to the media in general to whom you've written a review about me, and to the Mass Commission Against Discrimination, if they come to the conclusion that we've acted improperly or that we've in some way knowingly or purposely discriminated or done something incorrect, if they determine that that's the case, then certainly I will step down and remove myself or be removed from the Board of Health. So I'll just leave it at that. Again, I think I've tried to make the best decisions the whole way, made them on a medical basis, perhaps not always on a correct legal basis, but even with that, I've done my best. So I'll respect the opinions of those who make decisions about who can sit here, and if it's determined that I'm not capable or not appropriate, then by all means, I will step down and someone more capable and more appropriate can take my place. Yes.
I've written down some examples of why I think you're not a good chair. On February 3rd, you thought there was a state mask mandate. It had been repealed the previous May. You thought the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education mandate expired the end of March. It was actually the end of February. February 17th, you were asking Ms. Knipe, who was sitting next to you, what are we voting on? At the March 3rd meeting, you kept talking about masks. You didn't seem to remember that the mask mandate was rescinded at the previous meeting. You listened at the February 17th meeting to almost 2 hours of testimony of the harms to children caused by masks, including special needs and disabled students. And yet at a subsequent meeting, you had the nerve to say that masks don't cause any harm and any issues. It seems like you're completely incapable of comprehending what the public is telling you and responding appropriately. Also at the last meeting, you said, as you say at every meeting, oh, thank you for your research. If you were really thankful for our research, you would have listened to our public comment before you made your votes instead of after.
Again, I truly do appreciate your comments, and as I said, I'm not an attorney. I would admit that perhaps I've made some logistical or procedural errors along the way, and it's nice that I have someone like you to straighten me out. I've made my decisions based on medical knowledge with the best interest of Fitchburg at heart. If there's something wrong with that, if others think that I should be replaced because that's the basis on which I conduct myself and make the decisions, as I say, by all means, I will step down. Someone like you might do very well taking my place. You seem to have it all very much in hand. So, as I say, when the time comes, if someone makes the decision that I've been somehow incapable or improper, then by all means, I'll step aside.
You said if others think you should step aside, you
I'm
take
not,
that.
I think you're done. I'm not here to argue.
Anyone else think he should step aside? Anyone else in the room?
This isn't a vote, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, this has to end. This is ridiculous.
This is disruptive.
Yes, this,
All right. So I think,
No, you aren't. What am I?
well, I hope you're satisfied with the votes, and I think that really concludes the business that is relevant to you, and that you petitioned about. The rest of it, I think, has to do with the Board of Health business. If you want to sit and listen, you're certainly entitled to do that. But I think we're down to item number 5, which is meeting minutes, to approve the meeting minutes of March 3rd, 2022.
neither of us have had a chance to go over them. They just came through us today, and I was out all day, Ian worked. So we'd like to make a motion to table those until the next April 7th meeting, if that's possible.
I second.
Okay, and I'm in favor of that. I read through them, but not with a fine-tooth comb because we had other things to be concerned with. But yes, we can table that till the next meeting. And item number 6 is variance requests. 17 Eureka Street to replace an existing tub with a walk-in shower. Is there someone who was going to address us about that?
Didn't we do this one already?
Nobody has signed on, so I can handle the request. It's very similar to the request of last month. Basically, the contractor is unable to put a 2-inch drain. It's an old plumbing regulation. They will also have to apply to the plumbing board, but they are unable to put a 2-inch drain in the shower, so they are going to put installing a 4-inch threshold pan and a 2.5 gallon per minute shower head to help with the flow, so that the drain would be adequate for the shower. A very similar request will go to the plumbing board. Neither the plumbing inspector or the building commissioner had a problem with this request.
All right. Well, I would make a motion to allow those changes to be made, that the conversion to the appropriate drain size could be made, and the shower head in compliance with that be placed.
I'll second that.
I'm in favor.
So I think that,
If I may just make a couple of announcements before we adjourn. Next Thursday, March 24th, at 6:30 PM in the Legislative Building, the City of Fitchburg Health Department's Substance Abuse Prevention Division will be conducting a Narcan and overdose prevention community training. It will also be filmed on FATV, so folks can take part at home. But we encourage folks to take part in that event. You are certainly welcome to come to this building as well. It is open to the community, no pre-registration required. In April, we will once again on Saturday, April 30th from 10 a.m. to noon, right out front of City Hall on 718 Main Street, we'll be conducting our well, actually, I was going to say annual, but we actually do it twice annually, a medication take-back of unused and unwanted medications. So those folks who have medicine cabinets full of medications, we ask you to bring them down, and we will get them properly disposed and in the right hands.
Could you repeat the date, please? I didn't-
Sure, sorry, it's Saturday, April 30th, from 10 a.m. to noon, out in front of City Hall. And that's all I have.
that concludes your announcements.
That includes my announcements.
Then I could perhaps entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, and I'll third that. Meeting is adjourned.